Hey guys, welcome to Starcastic Remarks. My name is Ryan, and we are continuing with our fan series episode here this evening. It is currently July 9th of 2022, and we are going on with the season. We're getting closer and closer to free agency, but tonight we're going to have another fan stories episode here for you. But before we introduce him tonight, I would appreciate if you guys would go and use that promo code THBN next time you're over at DraftKings. They're our sponsor. They allow us to do all this cool stuff like this and allow us to get a little bit of cha-ching on the site. So we appreciate them very much. But without further ado, we're going to introduce our fan for the interview today. His name is Davis. Hey, Davis, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
So is this your first time doing one of these fan interviews like this?
No, I've done two fan interviews on an OU football podcast called Through the Keyhole.
Through the Keyhole.
Yeah,
Shout out to Through the Keyhole if I can
yep.
talk.
At
Blah, blah,
Keyhole
blah.
Pod on Twitter. Great
Okay.
podcast. Great podcast for any OU fans who are out there.
Oh,
Might be few of
you.
us who listen to this podcast. So
I'm just kidding.
yeah,
I don't really have a preference when it comes to
yeah.
OU or whatever. I was growing up. I was brainwashed Nagy, right? Because my dad was
It's a
Nagy.
cult.
Yeah, it is a cult. It pretty much is. And my brother Chris goes to
Yep,
A&M, as you probably very well know,
yep.
and I did not. So even that still is kind of ingrained in my brain a little bit to hate all these schools around other than A&M. So I
Yeah.
apologize. But
All right.
anyways, man, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? What you do. Do you have a job, family, how old you are, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm from the Oklahoma City metro. I grew up in Edmond, Oklahoma, so just north of Oklahoma City. Uh, Grew up there, graduated in 2018, moved down to Norman, where that's where I am right now. I graduated in December with degrees in sports business and management information systems. And right now I'm starting my master's in sport data analytics in the fall. So I'm kind of in between right now. I'm working as a temp for a mortgage company, making sure that people turned in their mortgage documents correctly. But yeah, I mean, 21 years of great life so far. I can't wait to see what comes next.
So that's pretty cool. I didn't know that about you. What made you decide to get into sports like that? Because I mean, especially with the masters you're trying to do, there's not many people that would go into a degree like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've always grown up around sports. My parents put me in YMCA sports when I was young. So I've always been around it and I really enjoyed it. I was never that good, but I still went out and had a great attitude and did that. Um, and I kind of played up until freshman year of high school. That was the last year I played an organized sport, really. I was a backup offensive lineman for a big school football team. So if I wasn't getting playing time on the freshman team, there was no point in doing going forward. And that year I was also doing marching band and football, and I did not want to keep doing that. But kind of during that year, I saw some of the behind the scenes stuff that other teachers and coaches did, and I kind of realized that was something I wanted to do because I've always had a passion for sports. I've watched OU football religiously for the past probably 10 years, just because that's the age of understanding, and rather than just I'm watching it because my dad is watching it.
Right, right, yeah.
Um, but yeah, kind of through high school, worked with that. I got to OU. It was still the sport management degree, which was just a concentration general management degree, became its own program. And during that time, I was a student equipment manager for OU's track and field team, which was really cool. A lot of hours, but it was really cool.
So, do you have a specific story from when you were in high school that kind of really made you think like, "Hey, I really, really want to do it"? Because you mentioned your teachers and coaches. What was something specific about what they did that you were like that you really gravitated towards?
It was kind of the one of the big things I'd say would be looking at like the storage closet, which I now would now call the equipment closet, just because I've worked in equipment. Just seeing kind of how one coach had to organize all that and issue it to all the players. That was kind of one of the things that really stood out to me as someone has to do that. I want to be around sports, but I'm not good enough to play. I can fill that role, and that was kind of that's like the moment I was like, I think I want to do something in sports.
And that's really cool because this is totally a little off topic, but there are people that do that, and the
Mhm.
people that are around sports that aren't good to play, like you and I,
Yeah.
and especially it made me think of the Rich Peverly incident. You know,
Hmm.
the doctors that were there
Hmm.
basically saved a man's life on the bench.
Yep.
So. I mean, you always
Yep.
need people like that, and especially the equipment managers and the guys who
Hmm.
work behind the scenes, especially like scouts in the NHL, which is kind of
Yep.
relevant because we just had the NHL draft on Thursday and Friday. So I mean, those people don't really get a lot of recognition. So I mean, that's admirable that you're looking to go into something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things where I like being able to help but not get all the credit, and so it kind of fits my personality of, hey, I'm important and I'm helping achieve a goal, but I don't need to be on the front lines getting all the credit. So that's why I like the people who like that, the trainers, the equipment staff, the directors of operations. They're if you were to find a organization chart of a pro team like the Stars, you would realize just how much it takes and why it is a business in and of itself.
Right, and obviously the people like get a majority of the recognition, like obviously the players because they're the ones that
Hmm.
are publicly out there. The coaches, the general manager Jim Nell, if we're talking about
Hmm.
the Stars or whatever. So I mean that's really cool and admirable that you would look into something like that. Let me ask you about the sports analytics that you were talking about with
Yeah.
the Masters because I'm still a newbie when it comes to sport analytics, and I don't really talk about it all that much because a lot of our listeners are kind of iffy about it. But there is a lot of good things when it comes to sport analytics
Hmm.
and deciding whether a player is good or not. With defensive metrics, that's something that's really hard
Hmm.
to kind of measure, and you can use sport analytics and really deep analytics to explain why a player is so good. Like for example, Michael Raffle. There's like Jay Fresh on Twitter who does that sort
Hmm.
of stuff. Um, what made you decide to kind of look into that as like a master's? Because that's something that could be really confusing to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm new to it too. So that may seem odd that I chose to do it as a master's despite not knowing much about it. It's because I want to learn about it and I think I would succeed with it. Um, I kind of just got a passion for it last fall, right as I was getting ready to leave OU undergrad. And so I'm still learning, and I've had some coding experience, so I've got to learn to code in R. But it kind of interests me because it's a growing field inside and outside of sports, just analytics in general. And so there's a lot of, and I like numbers. Math has always been one of my best subjects. So the math and aspect of like, let me solve this problem using numbers to see how we can improve and set ourselves apart. That's the thing that like really draws me to this field. Um, yeah, and I forgot the other part of the question. I got lost in that part. So
It's good. It's okay. I'm asking you a lot of questions.
yeah,
It's all good. So eventually, so you seem like a really educated guy and a really motivated guy when it comes to getting educated. So what do you eventually foresee yourself do? I know everybody hates this question, but
yeah.
like 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, what do you see yourself doing with the degrees that you have?
5 years down the road, my goal is to be working within a sports organization, uh, probably now with numbers and the analytics to help further the team towards a championship goal, or to sell more tickets, or because the program is there's some performance based classes you can take on like athlete performance and how to help them train better, but there's also courses on the business side about, like I just said, ticket prices and moving all that stuff around to optimize your market or just see what the trends are. It's doing something like that. I'm not pigeonholing myself yet because again, I'm still very new to this and I don't know entirely what this 2-year program is going to hold as far as education, but I that's my short-term goal, is to just be implanted ingrained in a sports organization working towards the goal of that organization.
You hear that, Dallas Stars? You hear that?
Yeah, I went to a
Personal shout out.
yeah, I did go to the career fair on the 14th that they were hosting, and I did
Uh-huh.
get a business card uh, for with information for the analytics guy.
Oh,
So that
very
is something I'll
cool.
be looking into uh, probably within a year.
Yeah, very cool. Because are you going into your second year of your master's or just your first year?
No, I'll just be starting. So I kind of ended up I came in with credits from high school, not and so I was kind of early. I was going to get out of college early, and I ended up graduating a semester early. And the program was like, "You're accept." I was talking with the advisor. He's like, "You would get in, and we could get you in for the spring, but the teaching positions that we offer to help students that pay for your tuition don't open up until the fall. So you can either
Yep.
pay for the spring semester and start now, or you can wait and have someone pay for your tuition." I was like, I'm going to wait and go find another job and save that money for when I'm a poor college kid.
Right. I totally get. I remember those days. Uh, I was trying anything and everything to try and make school cheaper. So I totally get that. So let's get into some of the. I mean, that's really cool. I love
Mhm.
that you're doing that because that's really neat. Because that's something that I've even considered getting into as well. So getting into the behind the scenes sports
Yeah.
side, I've always thought about getting involved in something like that.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this because obviously we're a Dallas Stars podcast and you're talking
Mhm.
about sports in general. And, it sounds like you're willing to work with any team when it comes to numbers. But why do you specifically love the Dallas Stars and hockey in general? What kind of attracts you to the sport
Yeah.
of hockey?
Well, the thing that attracts me to the sport of hockey is the fact that I'm a football fan. So you're telling me I can watch people hit each other? Like you're telling me I can watch a dumbed down version of football on ice? I I like the physical side. I played offensive line. I like getting to hit people. So you put people on skates doing that. That's the general draw for me. But hockey's always kind of been hard to access here in Oklahoma. There's not a
Hmm.
professional team. We did have the Oklahoma City Barons, who I believe were the AHL affiliate of the Oilers at one point, but they were kind of when I was still young, and we went to one game. My brother, who could have been, if I was 10, he would have been 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And 5 minutes left in the third, less than 5 minutes left in the third period, there's a fight that breaks out. So at the time, I'm like, this is why you come to a hockey game, the fight. And he he's not a sports guy then, he's not a sports guy now, but my little brother was yelling, hit him in the face, hit him in the face. So that's one of the things that just always gets it to my family, of just like, at least everyone but my brother, and we love him, and he does, it's just not what he likes, but
Mhm.
everyone in my family likes sports and the physicality involved. So
Yeah, and that's what I tell everybody about the sport of hockey. It's just like even if you don't necessarily like shooting a black puck into a net, and that doesn't, I don't know, doesn't excite you. It's
hmm
the only sport where you can punch somebody in the face. You get in timeout for 5 minutes, and then you're good. Everything's
hmm
forgiven. So I mean, in football, you get suspended. Basketball, you get suspended. I mean, MLS, you get red carded. Whatever. So that's a reason why I liked hockey when I was little, and I continue to tell people that now too. But so how did you get involved with Stars hockey in particular? Because obviously there's probably a proximity close, sort of
hmm
closeness, I should say.
yeah,
So how'd you get into watching Stars and watching Stars hockey?
yeah. So in 2019, I was living alone on campus, and at OU, when you're on the Wi-Fi, you essentially have a free Cox subscription, Cox cable thing that you can pull up online. And I was at home at my apartment, just kind of scrolling through the little thing because I was bored and I didn't have anything to do. And I saw Stanley Cup playoffs, Blues Stars. I can't remember which game it was. I don't remember. I don't think it was Game 6, but I turned it on, kind
Yeah, we
of
don't
as
talk. We
like,
don't talk about Game 6.
I know. I've done my research since then, but I watched. I kind of watched the game. I was like, man, I really like hockey. Why is it on NBCSN? We never had NBCSN growing up. Um, and so kind of within, that was the only hockey game I watched in the playoffs. And then I kind of was like, the more I thought about it, was like, you know, Dallas is the closest team to me. It's either Dallas or St. Louis. So, I mean, that's kind of funny how that worked out. But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm just going to be a Stars fan now. Why not? Um, and so that's kind of how I ended up picking the Stars, is just because I watched one hockey game, and a couple months later was like, they're the closest team to me. Why not? Let me follow it a little closer
Well, that's really cool. That's neat. And so you're some people would say you're a relatively new Stars fan.
now.
Relatively new. I mean, you've been around for 4 years still, but there's, old people like me who I've literally identified with the Dallas Stars since
Hmm.
I was born.
Hmm.
Like honest story, since
Yep.
1993. So, but that's cool that you're new and it's around and that's how you found them.
Hmm.
So, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just agreeing with you.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, so let me ask you about some of your favorite players. So you probably don't know many of the older players, but you might have done some research about it.
Yeah.
But who are some of your favorite like current Dallas Stars players that you like to watch?
Yeah, I get this comes from my offensive line, the offensive lineman in me. I like watching the defensive side, and not necessarily everyone who gets the puck or gets to score all the time, but like I like watching the people who help win. Like Fox, I know people are upset with him, but he has a role on the team. We can discuss his effectiveness at that role and all that later at a different time. I know that's going to make some people mad, but Miro's really fun to watch. I like watching Lindell. He's a defensive defenseman. That's just something he makes good plays too. But Otter's my favorite. I mean, when he came in 20 in the shortened season, the
Mhm.
21 season, I when he just kind of was like proved that he's going to be good. I mean, this is first go round, and he ended up playing really well. I was like, this kid is going to be special, and I love watching him. And when I came to that game on the 14th against the Wild, I was really hoping Otter got the start, but I ended up with Wedgwood. I was like, dang it.
Yeah. Which he's still pretty good too. He's not
Yes,
bad for a backup.
yes,
So,
yes. But when you live in Oklahoma and you don't get to go to a game every time, you're kind of always,
hoping
please
for
let me see the goalie I want.
yeah, I get that too. Living where I live now, I used to live in Dallas several years ago, but because of my job and where I live now,
Mhm,
I'm actually out in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. So it takes me like 5 hours to get to Dallas from where I am.
mhm,
And so it's very rare that actually get to watch a game in person now. And it like the only time I really got to watch games was over Christmas time, and then over spring break. So that was like the only time I really got to watch the Stars the past couple of years is during those times. So I totally get that. Um, so a name that popped into my head while you were talking about defensive guys is Jamie Alexiak.
Yep.
Do you like Jamie Alexiak?
Yeah, I liked Alexiak. He was kind of here for 2 years of fandom and then left. So I don't have like a super huge attachment to him. Fun story about that. The first game against Vegas of the Western Conference Finals, I was up home in Edmond and I had it on, and my dad was watching, and he scores that goal, and that the rest of the game, my dad's like, "Why aren't they trying to score more?" I'm like, "This is just who the Stars are. They're a defensive team," and they just kept showing Alexiak on the rebound, and you're just like, the Ben rebound, I believe, but
Mhm,
it's one of those things. It's like I just enjoy watching those guys.
mhm.
Uh, it was kind of sad to see him leave, but when the contract came out, like even as a new fan, I'm like, maybe it's good to let that cap hit go.
Yeah, he kind of. I mean, he got paid, and good for
Yes,
him. He got
yes.
paid. He got what he deserved. But there was no way the Stars were going to be able to afford that kind of a cap hit from what he was. Well, from
Hmm.
what he got from Seattle when he got selected. But Tell me about some of your favorite Dallas Stars moments, because being a relatively new fan, that's kind of interesting to
Yeah.
figure out, from 2019 and now, what some of your favorite moments are.
The Winter Classic is kind of the point where I started to really follow the team. Kind of from there, I caught the third period because it was football season for me when the season started. I didn't really
Mhm.
care. I saw that Monty got fired and was like, "Oh, that's shocking for reasons because no one said anything about why he got fired other than conduct." So I was intrigued, but I kind of just put it back to the side, focused on football. But the Winter Classic was kind of when I started to get in. Um, the first game I watched start to finish was we were in New York playing the Islanders, so it would have been probably at Barclays, and I believe that was the game Stephen Johns came back. Um, it was either that one or the Rangers won the night or two after because I watched that one too. Then there's the pause, which was all that. But my all time favorite game is Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals. Uh, that was kind of during a portion of my life where I was working a lot because the track team got affected by COVID a lot, and that changed my hours to where I was essentially a full time worker, part time student when it should have been the other way around.
Mhm.
Um, but late at night, when I was still there doing my job, making sure that things got done, um, I would have the game on and work and do what it was. And even as my first season as a fan, getting to the Western Conference Finals, I'm like, this doesn't happen very often. And when you do, you could be like the Thunder and make it out of there once, much to my dismay. Um, but and just when Gurionov scored that goal, I literally stopped working for 20 minutes. Like even after the uh, Campbell Cup presentation, Campbell Bowl, I was not working. I was just so excited, running up and down the equipment room, just like yelling my heart out. No one was around me, so no one suspected anything. It like just it was a moment of joy for me in a time where it was very hard to be joyful and just know something is going my way. I'm I'm very happy. So there's a lot of personal reasons why that game is my all-time favorite Stars game.
That's a really cool story. I like to hear that, because there are some instances when I was very similar to that, where I was, having a rough day or whatever, and especially with COVID, when the world was shutting down, everything was so unpredictable, unknown. We didn't know what was going to happen, and then we get this absolutely incredible, magical, unsuspecting run to
Mhm.
the Stanley Cup final. Yes, we didn't win the Stanley Cup, and you know, as a Stars fan, I don't know. I hate to say this, but I don't know if we're going to get back there for a while. But just the memories that they gave us out of that run alone, I'm going to remember for the rest of my life. And
Mhm.
like, for a generation of Stars fans, we have, and I'll just go ahead and tell you, we've got the 1999 Stanley Cup final win, and that's what really exploded Dallas Stars fandom. And then we had the 2008 Western Conference
Conference
final
Finals.
run. Yep. And then the 2020 Stanley Cup final run as well was another big portion of growing the game in the state of Texas, and just beginning a new, I guess you could say, a new generation of Stars fans. So I totally get that memory and why you would identify with that, because that's such a cool moment. It was such a
Mhm.
cool moment. Do you have any other memories that kind of stick out into your mind over the past couple of years?
Well, going to my first game, as I mentioned, again, and April 14th against the Wild, that because that was kind of a. I was supposed to come down for the December 23rd game against the Jets
And
because,
the COVID pause, yeah.
yeah, I picked that game because I like Connor Hellebuck, so I'll kind of root for the Jets on the side, just of like, if they win, great. If they don't, oh well.
Mhm.
Just one of those like, hey, cool. I like this other team too, just because they have a player I like. Okay. But yeah, the border shut down, I'll call it, stopped that game from happening. And there were some other things that I ended up being glad that happened. I just some family stuff ended up happening that needed to be there for.
Yeah.
Um, and then, but I was going to ended up getting this email about the Stars career fair, and they're like, "Hey, come here, you get a ticket." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to the career fair now.
Yeah.
I
Why
get to go to
not?
a game this season. Why not?" And so getting to experience kind of what I'd researched, and since I've become a fan, I've read the 100 things Stars fans should know and do before they die. Kind of
By
that
Sean
series.
Shapiro. That's
Yep.
a great
From that
book.
series. And so I was aware of some of that stuff, and just from talking with other Stars fans I know, I was really excited to get down for a game. Um, and it was a lot of fun. And even I was really sad when Flurry had that stretch pass in overtime to end it, but I just kind of was like, "That's a great play," and we got it to overtime. I'm I'm okay,
Yeah.
and the just driving home that entire night, or at least the first 2 hours of the 3 hour drive, I was like, "That today was a great day."
And you're close enough that you're not too far away to where you can maybe go out for a game every once in a while.
Yeah,
And I don't know if you've seen the new schedule, but the new schedule is has a
yeah,
lot more like day games.
yes,
So like especially during the weekend or on
yeah,
Sundays and stuff like that. I mean, I'm kind of excited for that because I even could do something like that if I was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
So
I talked to I got out of that game, and I was like, I texted my dad, who's kind of become a hockey fan since it's now that it's on ESPN and TBS, and I got back into it. I'm like, you would really enjoy coming to a Stars game, and so he was kind of surprised, like me. I'm like, yes, and I told him kind of next time I saw him in person, I'm like, I'm thinking about probably going to go back in December again, like I had originally planned, just because that's when my schedule frees up and I don't have to worry about school anymore. So, or at least for that semester, whereas I just
Mhm.
have a break and I can go do that. And so I told him, I'm like, I'll gonna look at a game, and if you want to go, the game that I'm looking at is the Red Wings game on the 10th because it's 1 p.m. We could make it a day trip. We've done something like that before, um, and one of my freshman year of college roommate, he he's from Michigan, so he's a Detroit fan.
Oh,
Tigers, Lions, yeah,
especially
Pistons,
the Lions.
yeah, and Red Wings. And the Red Wings are kind of the one he was the most sad to see decline, because you've got the Lions and the Tigers who haven't been very good for a while. The Tigers did have a run in the early tens though, so I'll give them that. Um, but he's also a huge football fan, and he's like, the Lions just suck, but why do I root for them? And so I kind of, and freshman year, OU has a club team too, so that was another thing that we kind of went to some club games, and I kind of started to get into hockey there too. Um, I don't know why I forgot to mention that earlier,
Mhm.
but just kind of watching some club games that I got into for free, and I still go to those games. It's just fun to watch grassroots hockey essentially, and um, watch that. And so I kind of the Eastern Conference team, kind of the same thing as the Jets. If there's a team in the Eastern Conference I want to do well, it's the Red Wings. And so it's kind of just been a crazy road of the pat since I've been in college, essentially, of how much I've dived into hockey.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. And to your friend's credit, the Red Wings are on the upswing now.
Yes.
I've actually been trying to put together my way too early season predictions, and I actually have the Red Wings in the playoffs. So for the first time in a long time. So we'll see how that goes
Well,
right now. But
yeah, it'll be interesting because now I think the two teams you're going to see in those predictions that you're going to be like, that are going to, people are going to say the same thing about are the Wings and the Sens, because of all that stuff. And one of my other friends who's a Senators fan is pretty happy right now.
Yeah, I totally, and yeah, especially right now with for those of you that are listening at the time of this recording, Alex DeBrincat just got traded to the Ottawa Senators. So I'm sure a lot of people in Ottawa are very excited about that. So I
Hmm.
mean, I would be too. I was hoping
Hmm.
the Stars could have went out and got Alex DeBrincat, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, though. So one of the I forgot there was one question I was going to ask you about. Oh, so you just been to one Stars game in general, right? Just the
Hmm.
April 14th game against
Yep.
Minnesota. What did you like about the game in general? Was it the actual play on the ice? Was it the atmosphere? What was it about the American Airlines Center that was so much fun?
Well, I got to go down and kind of hang out with the Hawk and Paws homies, kind of that area. I got to hang out with them, see the warm ups, and just see like actual players, like almost as far as I am from the computer screen I'm talking to you through, just to
Hmm.
see players that close. That's a really cool experience. Um, the play on the ice and just to see, because I've been to a prob roughly 50 OU club games just from my time at OU, and just to see the difference from a bad club team to pros, just the play on the ice and how fast paced everything was and how clean the passes were, and just that was really cool. But the atmosphere was actually one of the best things I've been to in a while. Just with the stars during the national anthem, which is one of my favorite sports things, like just with a song. Just the music was really nice. Like uh,
Shout out to
OU's,
Shippy. Shout out to
yes,
Shippy.
OU's. I've been to a ton of OU sporting events, and OU's not necessarily something I go for the music. It's not my thing, and not a ton of the songs were like quote unquote my thing, but I still really enjoyed them and the atmosphere Shippy played with the music, and just to it was it was just a
It
It
was
was a
just
lot.
fun.
Yeah, it was just a lot of
It was
fun.
just fun.
And like I said, I want to go back, and I'm eyeing the Red Wings game on the 10th of December.
And I think I speak for all Stars fans when I say this to you, Davis, is a regular season game is nothing like a home playoff game. It
Yeah.
you eventually one day, and they do get kind of pricey sometimes,
Yep.
but you got to go to one of those games sometimes. I promise you,
Yeah.
it is so much different. It gets louder. It's
Hmm.
insane. It's
Yeah.
bonkers. And I'm sure everybody who's listening to me say this right now is in complete agreement with me when I say that it's so much fun being in a playoff atmosphere like that at American Airlines Center.
Yeah. I really want to, but when it gets pricey and you live 3 hours away on
And
a
the time of year
weeknight,
too, it kind of
yeah,
makes it hard.
it's just hard. It's also frustrating. I always made my because I'm a Thunder fan. I don't follow the NBA as much as more, but anymore just because of differences and all that. But I'm a Thunder fan, and when really big fan when they were in the playoffs all the time. And I never got to go to a playoff game, despite everyone telling me you would love it. It's so much better than a regular season game. So I have yet to make any playoff game appearances, which kind of stinks.
Well, one day you will. One day you will.
One day.
One day. Well, hey man, thanks for doing this. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on and doing this with me. I know it's late. We're doing this. It's almost 9:45 at the time we're recording
Yeah.
this. But last question for the evening. How are you thinking about the next Dallas Star season? I've talked to Mullet Mike, and he says you should always be excited for the season because, it's Dallas Stars hockey. And then I've got some people who are cautiously optimistic, like Julie. Julie was cautiously optimistic. And then I've got some Stars fans who I've been talking to who are just very pessimistic and very depressed because of the prospects of next season. Where do you fit in all of that? Where would you put yourself?
I'm with Julie. I'm cautiously optimistic. Uh, DeBoer was not my first choice, but my first choice was Trotz. And the more I sat down and thought about that, I just wanted Trotz because of the name, not because of fit and all that.
Hmm.
And I was not really too concerned about who the next coach is going to be. Um, but DeBoer still wasn't my first choice. I still think with the roster we have, and he does have a record of success, but it's not ultimate success.
Yeah, he doesn't have a Stanley Cup. That's true.
Right. And so it's one of those things of I think he can be a good coach, but are we going to get the performances we need from players? Because we've had some like Ben and Sagan, their scoring's down, the tired storyline there. Just kind of some of that stuff. You have to perform too, because I've seen teams in my lifetime that come in with all this hype of, yeah, we're gonna do it. We're gonna like we should be the team to win, and then no one performs the way they should. There's things are just off the entire year, and then a coach leaves in November. But this is not OU football. I should stop talking about that. So I'm used to stuff. I'm using that as an example of I'm used to stuff like that. So I always kind of come in with a, hey, I really do think we have if we play hot at the right time, like the bubble, I think we can go on
do
a run.
Yeah, do some
But I
damage.
also have been a sports fan long enough to know don't sell yourself there. You're going to get hurt again.
Right, yeah, and that was totally that way in 2021 when we did make the playoffs, and I knew most of it was because of the injuries we had, and
Mhm.
Sagan was hurt, Hintz was playing every other game, yeah, and we just had a rough season, and
Mhm.
I mean that was on the back burner, but I really am excited for this season and this upcoming season, and I've actually been more optimistic the past week or so than I have in a long time, like a very long time. Like I was very high on the team going into the shortened 2021 season, but I'm even more high on them now because it looks like they've got a lot of good players and they're going to do some damage. And it looks like they might go after a top six guy who can score some goals. So
Yeah.
if that's true, then it's making me even more excited for next season. So
Yeah, and the other thing that helps, like what you were saying with the players coming back, is that like there's been a consistent level from the players we have coming back. That gives me some optimism too. Like uh, the Robo Pavs Hints line was consistently our best line, and like when we needed something, they provided it 95% of the time.
mhm.
And there's role players who will provide a key goal every now and then, like Raffle. Uh, it just there's there's a lot to like here. I just reserving myself because I've been hurt too many times by OU football. I'm just gonna say it.
Hey, I'm just saying I get hurt from the Stars,
Yeah.
but also from the Mavs a little bit as well from this past postseason, and also the Cowboys are the most perfectly mediocre team in the NFL. So it's just the way it is. But
Yeah.
well, Davis, man, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. This has been a blast, and I hope to hopefully one day run into you at a Stars game
Yeah.
in person rather than just virtually like this. But
Oh
you got
yeah.
anything else you want to say before we close it off for tonight?
Uh, no, not really. If you liked what I said, and I don't care about followers, but I'm just gonna say it. My Twitter is at SoonerFan432. I'm not super active, but I mean, if you want to talk or something, just
He's
let me
there.
know there. Yeah.
And Dallas Stars people, go hit him up for a job when he graduates with the
Hey, the
Masters.
stars follow me, so they know where to find me.
All right, guys. Once again, Davis, thank you. Along with
Mhm.
Davis, my name is Ryan. This has been episode 8 of the Fan Stories series. We'll be back with you guys again very, very soon with another episode, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. You'll have a very good evening, and I'll just save it for Davis. Go OU football.
Yeah.